G'day once again, Melbourne Storm fans, and welcome to the Graveyard Shift, the official, unofficial Melbourne Storm fans podcast done by two blokes who are in COVID lockdown here in Melbourne. And we want to give you some unfiltered, unashamed pro-Melbourne Storm bias, the kind of which that probably doesn't really exist anywhere north of the Murray River. My name is Dubs, and I'm joined once again by the Poleman. Poleman, welcome back.
How are we, Dubs? Good to be back after another big, satisfying win over former powerhouse of the NRL, which, it was a good win.
Former powerhouse, you've said it perfectly there. You're right, it is good to be back once again. 2020's been a year that can go firmly in the dustbin, but the last few weeks for the Melbourne Storm have been pretty damn good. Our post-isolation jitters, inconsistent form probably 6 weeks ago, seem to have dissipated, and we've looked pretty good with big wins over top sides from last year and then big crushing victories over sides that we really should put away. So that fear we talked about last week, mate, that maybe the sleeping giant would wake, it didn't really materialise. In many ways, the game played out like we predicted, albeit it was reasonably close for a while in the first half, and then it was a blowout probably from 10 minutes before half-time.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Titans game. The Broncos came out firing. They absolutely had their pants pulled down against the Tigers. So you knew they were going to respond. But yeah, they just don't have the quality at the moment. I think it's simple as that. Interesting too, again, listening to sort of some player, post-match interviews and things like that. I think it was Bellamy said that he didn't fit. Cameron Smith mentioned that he felt like a few players in the warm-up were a little bit complacent, taking on one of the worst teams in the league this year. And Bellamy was asked that question, and he said that he didn't feel they were complacent until they scored that early try. I think he mentioned that really, that try in the first minute, whatever it was. I think a few players then thought, well, this is a lot easier than we even thought, and switched off a bit. But again, to the credit and the professionalism of the team, they got it together. And again, like I said, it was like that Titans game. Once we sort of got that sort of 2-try buffer, we sort of just broke their spirit, and that was it. And they made them look silly in the second half.
Completely. Interesting point you make there about complacency. You might be right, because we talked last week about scoring early and not letting the Broncos feel like there was a contest to be had. It happened almost as perfectly as could be scripted, scored really in the first complete set of the game. And then all of a sudden we're dominating early, conversion goes over. And then we were complacent for probably 10 or 15 minutes. The Broncos, to their credit, got in control of the game for a brief period and actually got ahead at one stage. And I wonder if after getting complacent, some of the boys thought, I can't go back in the dressing sheds with Craig Bellamy being trailing to Brisbane after having an early lead. That's just not going to go down well. So we did arrest the momentum before halftime, went in with a reasonably comfortable lead, and then from there, maybe diffused the bellyache, bellowing a little bit at halftime. And then really the second half was a clinic, and no disrespect to the Broncos as a club, but what they're presenting as a football team at the moment is just not up to par. And
I've got a theory,
they're struggling defensively. Go for it, mate.
I've got a theory. How can a team like Brisbane be so bad? So this is my theory, Dubs, and I'm putting it out there. It's a bit of a conspiracy theory. I mean, they're all out there today. You've got your anti-vaxxers, you've got your flat earthers, and
there's 5G towers, microchips in your vaccines.
I reckon this conspiracy theory's got some weight. So, there's been a lot of talk about a second Brisbane team. The NRL wants a second Brisbane team. And how is a second Brisbane team going to get any fans when you've got like a absolute giant like the Broncos in your town? The only way a second Brisbane team's going to get fans is if the Broncos are absolute rubbish and people are jumping off the Broncos bandwagon. So I reckon the NRL has set this up. They've paid the Broncos off for a season. You're going to be absolute trash for a year or two. We're going to bring in the new Brisbane team. People will jump on board, and then we'll see how we go. Because honestly, how else is a second Brisbane team going to survive? Unless the Broncos are absolute trash, which they are at the moment. And I'm enjoying it. No, obviously it's in joke, but...
Hang on, Michael. You say in joke. I'm going to take your conspiracy theory one step further. The Brisbane Broncos have said all that to the NRL. They want the NRL to believe they're going to play badly for a couple of seasons and have enough fans for and a second Brisbane team to start. Then they're going to flip the switch again when the new Brisbane team comes, play so well that everybody will hate the new Brisbane team and jump straight back to the Broncos as the traditional powerhouse, exactly like New Coke in the 1980s. New Coke was so bad that when they introduced Coke Classic, everybody raved about it again. Amazing. This is, the new Coke, the new Broncos will be that somewhere in Brisbane in the next couple of years. And we're going to end up with Brisbane Classic 5 years down the track. They're going to bring Gordon Tallis out, and they're going to get Darren Lockyer out and Alfie Langer, and they're going to line them up and say, this is the true Brisbane Broncos side, and everything else is a rubbish imitation. So, you heard it here first on the Graveyard Shift, folks.
Yeah, and listen, unless that second Brisbane team is the South Queensland Crushers, personally, I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's the only team we need to see up there.
They own the second Brisbane team title, and that's theirs. You got to bring it back. You got to bring back the beige and navy jerseys with the red collars and the steam train or the freight train, whatever it was on the logo.
Yeah, it was some primary school kids' art project gone wrong, I would say, that outfit. But that's exactly why we need that again. If rugby league is to embrace a more serious heritage round, I think that we should be wearing defunct clubs or clubs that are no longer playing at the top flight. That might be a bit galling for some of the traditional clubs in Sydney, for example, to have to put on a Bears jersey or something, or to put on the old Western Suburbs or something like that, the Balmain Tigers jersey. I know that there's merged clubs there, but we'd be safe down here in Melbourne. There's no one else, but up in Queensland, maybe the Crushers. The Broncos the Titans can wear the Crushers. Nobody there to offend because they haven't got a particularly impressive history.
What about the Seagulls?
The Seagulls. Oh, I apologise.
You're quite Chargers.
Right.
And then
okay, so Gold Coast can just wear whatever the hell they like, and no one will remember whoever's gone before them. But actually, I think we can both agree.
The Chargers win hands down the worst colours ever. They had like teal, purple, yellow. It was an absolute abomination.
Yeah, look, that's not something that we should be living long in our memory. However, a side that does need to be emulated and does need to be honoured, perhaps by Newcastle, is a team that some would say, controversially perhaps, actually overshadowed the Knights at one point in time, and that is the glorious Hunter Mariners. Maybe we should wear that, considering we absolutely pillaged half their squad in our inaugural season in 1998.
I heard during the Super League war that if you were seen wearing a Hunter Mariners jersey down the main streets of Newcastle, you were getting abused because apparently, obviously the Knights were ARL and majority of the obviously City follows the Knights, and the Hunter Mariners were apparently that was the enemy. But
can't imagine why the Hunter Mariners didn't work in a relatively small town with one very loyally followed team. I have railroaded this conversation, mate. Let's get back to the.
We've gone way sidetracked here.
I think. Well, look, the reality is, Mr. Poll, we've probably summed up the game about as much as we need to. Except there's one point I wanted to raise. One of our listeners last week raised, what do we think of Kenny Bromwich? And both of us went into bat for him. Particularly, he's a favourite of mine. And I just felt very vindicated with that first try, because that to me is what Kenny Bromwich can do, even as someone playing in the second row who's pretty big. He's got quite a lot of pace and creativity. And although Addo Carr got the final hands down on it, it was effectively a try made purely by Kenny Bromwich just thinking quickly and being a bit tenacious. So if you want to know why I like Kenny Bromwich, just watch the replay of the lead up play to that first try, and that's why I am a fan. I think he's got some versatility. He's probably doing a little bit of what Felice Kafusi used to do quite well. Being someone who's reasonably creative, a good support player, someone who can run a bit and put pressure on close to the try line. But the Foose, as I love to call him, hasn't quite stepped that up this year. So
he's gone a bit quiet this season, hasn't he? Maybe since when did he cut his hair? I don't know.
It's
season 2019. So.
He is Samson, so he hasn't been the same since.
Yeah.
Well, let me say, when he was playing grand finals and winning premierships, he had long hair. So that's all the proof you need. Now, that is a rabbit hole we do not want to open, my friend. So what are your final thoughts on the Broncos game from the weekend?
Oh, yeah, it was good clinical performance, especially the second half. And, they're out the way. Let's move on. Bigger fish to fry.
Exactly right. Got through the game relatively unscathed, and got the points. The last 2 weeks have been exactly what we hoped for. Comprehensive professional victories, enough to build up the points difference a little bit on the table as well, which wasn't particularly great because we'd had a lot of very tight victories against other top table sides. So this was perhaps us downhill skiing a little bit, but, a season, you have to do that. And it's about making sure you stay focused for the big games that come up. So, anyway, aside from the Broncos game, mate, what else happened in the NRL on the weekend? Give us the rundown of all the results and
All right, sure.
give us a look at the table.
Let's have a look at the NRL. Well, let's go through the results first. So it's pretty predictable round. I think there was only real one upset this week.
And it was a big upset. The rest of it, pretty predictable.
A few close games. So there you go. Opening up on the Thursday night, we had the Eels get over the Tigers in.
They bounced back.
I guess you call that a bit of a local derby. I mean, Leichhardt and Parramatta's not too
broadly
far
west.
away. Campbelltown's even further west.
Western Sydney, yeah.
But a good win there by the Eels. So I've just noticed that they've got the
they do the local.
That's interesting. Obviously,
names,
Indigenous round this week. Friday we had the Sea Eagles get over the Cowboys. Like the Cowboys seem to always put up a good fight. They just I was watching again a bit of that game. That they had the run of, I think they were down 12-6, and they butchered a couple of glorious chances. So they just lacking that little bit of finesse there.
You just wonder, don't you, what the Cowboys might have been able to do? There's clearly still some talent in that side. A lot of both premiership and grand final players from the last few years as well. But anyway, not to be.
And and then obviously we had our comfortable win there over the
Wurundjeri people, of course. The tribe, the traditional owners that cover most of the area of Greater Melbourne.
Yep. Then we had the Warriors put up a good fight against the Roosters, I must say. But again, just Roosters too good in the end there.
Aotearoa, sorry, just jump in there, the Kiwi in me. If you're not familiar with Aotearoa, the Maori name for New Zealand. So a little, obviously a little nod to the, not entirely the native indigenous peoples of New Zealand. Of course, Maoris were warriors from the Pacific Islands. The Morioris would be your original traditional native inhabitants there. But that is a history lesson that I don't have time for today. But interesting, you can see that in the Warriors logo too, a little bit of the native culture in coming through in their image there.
Interesting thing about their logo. So you know how the Warriors, I mean, they're pretty average now, but do you remember in the first sort of 5, 6, when did they make the grand final? Like 2002? So
yes, I think so.
They were very mediocre, and you probably don't remember, but I remember hearing this back in the day. Their logo, the tongue used to be bent, and then someone actually brought it up. Look it up. The initial logo, the tongue was bent, and someone brought it up. That apparently I don't know if this is all Maori tradition or folklore or just certain tribes, whatever it is, a bent tongue is bad luck. So they straightened the tongue, and then within a year or two, they made the grand final.
So there you go.
That was a bit of interesting with their logo there.
I'd have to ask my uncle that one. He's a Maori background himself. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I will take that one on notice. Perhaps that's a bit of research for us to find out for next week.
Yeah. Then we had probably the match of the round, the Sharks and the Dragons, 28-24. The last play of the game, what was his name? The young Dragons, I think he was a winger, grabbed the ball in the in-goal, went to ground it, grounded it on the in-goal line, and they lost the game. But, I mean, he did a fantastic effort. But that was probably the most exciting game of the week. That's a big derby there, the Sutherland Shire versus the is it the St George Shire they're in? But, obviously the two suburbs.
St George.
Why are they playing? Do you know why the Sharks are playing the home games out of Cobra? Is Netherfield not COVID safe? I'm not sure what's going on.
Entirely possible. I will admit I don't know off the top of my head.
And the next game, again, pretty close, but the Raiders just too good for the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, you'd expect that they were due for... they've actually bounced back pretty well since what, some might have suggested would have been a season derailing night against us 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we talked about last week. Ricky Stewart's really got them playing for each other, and he's got that us against them mentality happening.
Interesting to see if he can maintain that.
To beat. Yeah,
hard to beat is right. They're never going to be an easy beat, even undermanned.
Yeah, definitely. And then this was the big upset of the week. The bottom of the ladder Bulldogs got over the Newcastle Knights. I watched that game, and I think the Bulldogs got out to an 18-0, or they did get out to an 18-0 lead. And when they were up 18-0, their completion rate was 97% or something. It's incredible considering how wet it was. And then for those last 20 minutes, it was like, you're watching the Tour de France, and there's like one guy out in front, and then the peloton's just slowly catching. You just don't know if they're going to get it.
Maybe
But
they were respecting the don't
yeah,
attack in the final day. Maybe don't attack in the final 10 minutes or something for the Knights.
yeah. So they held on the Bulldogs, and it was quite a spirited win. And obviously they're our next opponents, the Knights.
There's a story in there too. I think that is look, they'll walk away saying, why did we have to get the Bulldogs on a monsoon day of weather? And you can bemoan your bad luck. Reality is that's hurt their top four aspirations and taken them away from knocking on the top four to being right on the cusp of dropping out of the top eight. That makes them a little bit dangerous in my mind. So when we talk about the upcoming game, I think that's something we need to be wary of. We're on a good run and form doesn't last forever. And the Knights will be particularly keen because they'll be looking at this game essentially as a double. This is really an 8-pointer, 4-pointer rather, a chance to really consolidate top eight and maybe keep top four in the hunt. Because if they lose to us, they might be saying, well, top four might be a bit tough for them. And maybe that's just the reality. Are they a top four side? I guess we'll find out this weekend.
And speaking of the wet, what did you think? I thought the wet, again, I could be selective memory here, but I thought when it was raining during our game against the Broncos, I think that's when we were struggling. I don't think when it rained, I think that's when we were dropping the ball the most. Would you agree with that, Dubs, or what do you think? Do you think we were worse in the rain?
Hard to say. I'm one who I know that wet weather does affect games. I'm never sure that teams can be better or worse as wet weather sides. What I would say as a general rule is a side that is slick and polished and clearly better than an opponent or in better form is always going to hate playing in driving rain because it can take out an element of silky skill that they have and give the opponents a chance to play perhaps a less polished, more grunt work version of football that they can actually exploit. And without knocking the Dogs, that's clearly what they did. And good on them. They did it very well. As to whether we're better or worse in the rain, I just haven't seen enough sample size to say.
Yeah, and everyone's been talking about the Dogs that their forwards have been, they've been laying the platform, but they just haven't had that, that spine, the halfback, the 5'8" to sort of finish it off. So
creativity, yeah. Plenty of territory, no punch.
Yeah, and then the last game we had again the Titans, the mediocre Titans. Won't go down to the Panthers. But again, they did put up a bit of a fight. This was, seen as a danger game for the Panthers. But again, I think they were a bit too professional, the league leaders. Nathan Cleary, he's looking like the best player in the league at the moment, doing everything right, apart from his TikToks. But
the less said about that, the better.
But they're looking pretty good, the Panthers. They're looking like the real deal this year. So let's see how that affects the ladder. So Panthers remain on top. We've jumped the Eels thanks to our for and against. Roosters remain fourth. We've got a nice now 2-game buffer down to fifth. We're talking about top four. The Sharkies and Sea Eagles really their results helping them in their hunt for the finals, whilst the Tigers and Rabbitohs. It's definitely not over yet. We've still got 9 rounds to play.
Plenty of time.
But the Dragons still on the outside chance. But Cowboys, Warriors, Titans, Bulldogs, Broncos. It's unfortunate. It looks like all their seasons are over. They're probably fighting for the wooden spoon there. So that's what round 11 looked like. So it's time to look forward to our round 12 clash on
Let's
Sunday.
Press on. The Storm versus the Knights. Tell us everything we need to know.
So here we go. So the game is at 4:05 p.m. We are the Wurundjeri people taking on the Aquabakal people. Oh, interesting. And speaking of Aboriginal names, now again, I'm pretty sure this is true. I've read this on Wikipedia, so it has to be true.
Oh, it's definitely true.
Do you know why the Eels are the Eels? Why Parramatta chose the nickname the Eels?
I'm wondering now if you're going to tell me that particular area of West Sydney, Greater Western Sydney, is perhaps is the eel a particularly prominent in a Dreamtime story or something?
Well, the word Parramatta, it either is or it derived from an Aboriginal word that means like the place where eels live, or something to do with eels. So they've that's where they got eels from, because the word Parramatta, is the place where it means where the place where eels live. Guys, viewers, please don't fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty. I'm at least along the right line. So I really like that when the team nickname has some meaning to it, rather than just picking a random gimmick. Like Yeah. So anyway,
I love that we went
Storm.
for Melbourne Storm rather than Melbourne inconsistent weather that makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know how true it is. I heard, back in the early days, we picked Storm because it was like, to those north of the border, Melbourne's known for its crap weather, and I thought it was Storm. I thought that was a bit
Own
of
it.
a own it. But, reading actually Melbourne Mavericks was one of the other options. So I don't think there was that much thought into the nickname.
Yeah,
I
I don't
thought,
think Mavericks. Well, it
man,
sounds
I'm glad it wasn't the Mavericks.
sounds like a
Storm,
college football team in America to me. I'm not sure that it really suits us. Maybe
yeah.
if we were the Melbourne Mavericks and we go Storm, why would you name yourself after a weather?
Well,
I
like
mean,
I
that's
said, Storm, you link it to Melbourne's perception, let's call it the perception of our northern friends
yeah.
of Melbourne's weather. So it's kind of like, that's why I kind of feel it's a uniquely Melbourne nickname.
Yeah.
But anyway,
The Melbourne hipster baristas.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Melbourne man buns. Irony intended with that one.
All right. Anyway, yeah. So 4:05 on a Sunday. It's live on Channel 9. So
Love it.
that's great. Let's see the lineup. So yeah, we've had a few injuries, Dubs. So
We
like you
have.
mentioned earlier, relatively unscathed. However, poor old Momirovski's out for 12 weeks. He's torn a tendon. Brenko Lee's fractured his hand. He's out for 1 or 2 weeks. As you can see, there are outs. And last week too, Kamakamika had back surgery. But
He did.
I read that he might be ready for finals, but apparently this was back surgery he had to have. This was this niggling injury that just wouldn't go away. So, obviously we wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah, certainly hope to see him back. I do love the way he plays, and I think he's a great enforcer as well. I suppose in a team balance sense, with Tino and Nelson, we've got a couple of pretty big enforcers in there already, but geez, I do like Kamakamita. So anyway, we'll cross our fingers for him.
Yeah.
And geez, Paul Momorowski, I was just starting to get used to him as this kind of new fixture. He was really impressing me. And then that's shocking luck for him and Brenko Lee as well. Names that aren't, were just starting to become established. And, oh, well, here we are.
Yeah, man. But the good news is, I guess Sully came back last week. What did you think of Sully's performance? I mean, he had a few moments, but he didn't look like he took on those defenders with the same confidence he usually does. I don't know if he was sort of still protecting
I feel like that was a transitional game. That was a game where he probably blew off a few cobwebs. I think we need to probably give him 2 to 3 more weeks. Player like Sully, his body being right is so important for him being able to be devastating. One thing I will say is that the defenders were still incredibly conscious of him. I think of that penalty given away relatively early in the game. I think it was just all inferred pressure. When Sully's in the area, they do silly things like go to block when the ball's in the air. Sully can make defenders panic, and even if he's not having a great day, I think oppositions tend to be conscious of him. So I'm happy to give him a couple more weeks to get himself in really fine form. Not everybody needs to be firing all the time. There's an old saying, go when it's your time. So hopefully he gets himself right, and when it's his time, he goes.
Yep. I was going to say something else about Sully, but obviously not. All right, so let's have a look at our lineup. So I think this is that the fullbacks, the battle of the fullbacks is sort of going to be the big
Ponga and Papa.
Papa versus Ponga. Then you obviously got Sully on the wing. We've got Sive and Olam in the centres, Adokar on the other wing. Now, see, they don't have Edric Lee. He must be injured. I'm very impressed with Edric Lee. I think in the air he's very good. And I remember our game earlier with him this season. I was with our mate Griff. Shout out to Griff if he's watching this. We're at our local pub watching the game, and when we were still out at the pub. Seems like a long time ago now. And I said to him, watch out for Edric Lee, but that Sully actually destroyed him that night. Yeah. I still rate Edric Lee though. Then we got Munster, Hughes. So, pretty.
Hughes on Mitchell Pearce. A young man trying to establish himself. Pretty capable young man is Jerome, but Mitchell Pearce definitely an established, very established and competent player. So, that's a fair battle for Jerome to step up to.
And Bradman Best is the other one who's really got a lot of people talking. One of the real up-and-comers this season. I don't think he did much against us, but I think after that game against us, he started really stepping up.
He looks a bit like Michael Ennis there in that picture.
Yeah, he does a bit. He's a bit of a big blockhead, but I've heard he's
again, I say he looks like Michael Ennis.
I heard he's very keen to learn, and his rate of improvement's been outstanding.
Good luck to him.
We got Nelson and Christian back starting props with Cam, obviously. Starting hooker, Felice and Kenny, second row. And Dale in the lock.
So basically, Nelson going back in for Brandon. Apart from that, pretty much as we expected or gotten used to with the forward packet as it
I think he
is.
started last week.
Oh, sorry, he
Nelson.
did too, but he started, but he wasn't in the number 8 jersey. So
Yeah.
perhaps a relatively late change there, keeping
You know,
the expectation that Brandon would start again. But again, I think at this stage of the season, it's not that big a deal, and I know others will disagree. I think at this stage, Bellyache's got to get his feel right. And last couple of weeks ago, he wanted Brandon to have a run. I think that's perfectly fine. And I think Nelson over the last couple of weeks has proved that whatever was, if it was the injuries, if it was the time out of the game, if it was, in his head, if it was just a bit of a drop in form, whatever was stopping Nelson from being his dominant force, I think he started to find that again. Even though perhaps the first few minutes of last week, Nelson might like to forget. So he'll be very happy we ran away big winners because Nelson had butterfingers in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think 2 drop balls and a penalty. And he got all his mistakes out of the way early, though. He's pretty good after that. Anyway, I'll catch you up there.
Our viewers have seen it's Nelson in the background. I actually can't remember what game it was against the Roosters, wasn't it? When he
I think that was.
It was like a final or it was a big game anyway. Yeah,
I can't remember. Nelson. I remember him doing it, but I can't remember when. That's embarrassing. I've got Glenn Lazarus for anyone who's interested. That is an immortal moment after the '99 grand final hooter went.
Yeah. Now, speaking of injured, actually, I'm seeing Kenny Bromwich's name there. Jesse's been named on the extended list. So, I mean, we're skipping ahead a bit here, but good to see Jesse. So, looks like Jesse's coming back to form, and he's going to be challenging for that, starting prop position as well. So, as we talked about the other week, got a lot of depth in the forwards, which is really, it's fantastic. You want good competition for those spots. Interchange, we've got Brandon, Tino. Tino's been going great. He's, love that kid. Didn't he score a double last week? Was it 2 or 1?
No, that's embarrassing. You put me on the spot.
No, he scored 2.
He scored 2. Yes, of course he scored 2.
We scored that many, it's hard to keep count. So it's and then we got Albert Vitae and Tommy Eisenhuth. And I wondered too, Dubs, how much do coaches play, try to play psychological games when they name their squad on Tuesday? And obviously it's always there's late mail. Someone's coming in, coming out. How much of that is actually necessary? Or how much of it is just trying to coach, not showing all their hands, not showing their full hand at the very beginning of the week,
To be honest, when you're 5 days away from match day, I think the coach is always going to have something up his sleeve. I think that they might name what they intend to be their squad, but let's be honest, naming your squad so early in the week is great for journos. It's great for us because we can have a look through it miles away from game time. I'm not sure it actually does that much for anyone, in the football department or any football clubs. I'm sure the Knights haven't just gone, great, I've got the starting line up and I'm going to put my entire game plan around that. They'll have their game plan and then they'll have expectations that there might be changes. Brandon was named at prop last week. He didn't start. He might start to get a prop this week. Who knows? Sully's back on the wing, but he started on the wing last week, but he wasn't named to start. Momorowski was. So, grain of salt, I think. I think the players they select in the extended squad, you can be pretty confident that's going to be what appears on match day. But in terms of what the final lineup looks like, I think it's always subject to change. Mind you, we did get a surprise last week that Brodie Croft was named to start at 5'8", and he did. So not starting it. And, I'm not sure if there was a particular tactical choice that they were trying to exploit with his knowledge of our team and game plan, but whatever it was, it didn't work. So, he wasn't terrible, but...
And I think, so on the actual game, I think this is a danger game for Storm. I think the Knights... I watched Adam O'Brien's press conference, and he was absolutely filthy on his team last week. He called them entitled. So he's going to I could imagine he would have absolutely ripped him a new one at training this week. And they're going to come out with a much different attitude than what they did against the Bulldogs. So we've got to be on our A game. I don't think this is going to be a big scoreline. I still think, again, I just think our professionalism, our consistency is just so hard to beat that I think we'll still win this one. But I don't think it's going to be. It's not going to be one-way traffic.
I 100% concur. And even if we do end up with a decent win, I'm not suggesting we will. I think it'll be quite close. But even if we end up winning comfortably on the scoreboard, they're going to make it hard for us physically. You don't cop a bake like that from a coach and then go soft. Or if you do, great, good for us. But it'd be a sign of something pretty bad going on. So I think the Knights are too proud as a team to come out and be soft against us. I don't think they will. I think that we're going to have to maintain our high standards of professionalism, particularly defensively, to make sure that we don't trip up in this game. And that's really all the analysis I'd like to offer at this point, mate. I think probably good that we had a reasonably long break. That they, I'd rather face them on Sunday than Friday night when they might still be fired up.
Yeah. We do have a couple of extra days. They played on the Sunday, so I guess that's to our advantage. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever say that. Yeah, we're going to lose this one, but I think I expect to see the Knights coming out really switched on for this.
Oh, likewise. A couple of tries, I'm guessing would be the most that we could blow that out to.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, let's move on. I reckon it's time to bring our fans some polls pondering. So when my good man, the poll, goes into his own little brain's archive, sorry, mate, didn't mean that. His own brain's little archives to find something obscure or silly to talk about from NRL. So take it away, mate. What's your pondering this week?
This is too obscure or silly this week, but I was watching Freddie in the Eighth. This was probably a couple of weeks ago. Andrew Johns named his favourite and least favourite Knights jerseys over the years, and so that got me thinking about what's my favourite jersey. So what I'll do is I've got a few jerseys lined up that are now first of all, so I can extend this out a few weeks. We're just talking home jerseys, no away jerseys,
not the gold monstrosity from the late 1990s. That wasn't that bad.
No gimmick round jerseys, so no Indigenous jerseys. Speaking of which, this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but like I get Indigenous round and I'm all for recognising women in rugby league and the Indigenous contribution in rugby league and all of that stuff. But I find it very frustrating that every other week we're wearing a different jersey. We should have a home jersey and an away jersey each year. And that's it. None of this throwback Thursday jersey. I'm a bit cynical. I reckon the league just does it so they can sell more jerseys at the end of the day. So I'm a bit of a traditionalist, a bit cynical, but I just have your Indigenous round. Don't get me wrong, but do we need to change the jersey? And as I said last, I'm a big fan of our jersey. I thought it looks great this year, our Indigenous jersey. But do we need to change our jersey dubs every other week? It's
I'm interesting. I'm going to be slightly different here because I quite like the special jersey rounds. Particularly love Indigenous round. You can learn a lot about cultures of the local teams, the tradition and the history that goes behind that. Quite like the Anzac jersey. I think there's a nice connection to Australia's history there. Interesting though, because you do make a point that you can devalue a special jersey if you have it all the time. So in your mind, what's the limit in a season? If you've got your 22, 23 rounds throughout the year, you want to be wearing your main jersey most weeks. What's the limit to the number of special jerseys you can make each year in your mind?
Oh, zero. Like I said, my own jersey.
Fair enough. You and I probably not agree on that one. I mean, I don't mind the special. I reckon you can learn a lot. We discussed last week what the symbols meant, so it blends a bit of that Indigenous art with a connection to modern rugby league in that area. Nevertheless, we'll agree to disagree on that one, mate.
Yeah, I know my opinion's probably not popular here, but I'm a traditionalist when it comes to jerseys. I feel, and that's the cynical part of me. I feel that it's not that genuine. I feel it's more just a marketing ploy for the NRL and the clubs just to sell more jerseys.
For what it's worth, I think you'd probably have a fair few people agree with you on the marketing part of it. Anyway, I think, now that I love.
So, this is, so we'll look, like I said, we're just looking at our home jerseys. So this is obviously 98. This is where it all started.
Beautiful.
I think, and it's got the Nike. First year we had Nike. I love around this shield thing around the actual Storm crest.
I've sort of forgotten that, but it's the white background. It looks so out of place now, but I'm just feeling nostalgia hit when I see that.
Yeah, and then this is obviously in 2018 we bought back
it's not that long ago.
A version of that, I guess, for our 20-year anniversary. We kept it for 2019. So first of all, I'm a big fan of this one and this one. Now for me,
I like the gold collar.
Yeah, I think an ideal Storm jersey for me, you need to have. There's got to be like a V on there.
Yeah. Connection to Victoria.
Or lightning bolts in a V sort of pattern. And there needs to be obviously navy, purple, white. But then for me to make it a Storm jersey, you need that little touch of yellow. I feel the yellow just adds so much to our colours.
It does. It's the icing on the cake.
Yeah, it complements the dark, the navy and the purple quite well. So I was a big fan of this one. This one, I
Uh,
wasn't a fan of this one. Now, 2016-17. I mean,
uh,
17 they added the gold numbers, which for me
which
made it a bit
helped.
better. But there's just not. I don't like how it faded in. It wasn't that. You
I
know.
like the form fit, but you're right. The color scheme is too. I don't know. I don't know if we say too modern, but it's like they tried too hard to make it modern
Yeah.
looking. Whereas actually, if there's one place you don't necessarily need that, it's sports teams. Sports teams, they're generally players and fans are generally pretty happy just to have a nice, well-made, traditional looking thing. You know?
Exactly. And
Take
this
Liverpool
is the
Football
point.
Club, for example. Red with a Carling logo or whatever it was for 40 years.
And exactly. And Andrew Johns made this point, and I agree with him 100%. You look at the best jerseys, they don't change. Like,
No.
sometimes the thickness of the V or something will change. And I think that's the problem with Storm. I get we're a relatively young club, but for me, that V and the lightning bolts, that's got to
Yeah.
be on our jersey every season.
Yep,
I
I
think
agree. I agree. I think
that's got
that
to
you can
be
have
the
variations that
non-negotiable.
you can have
Yeah.
a new kit maker, and so it might slightly change a little bit. But what Glenn Lazarus is wearing behind my head there, that's my favourite Melbourne Storm jersey.
Yep, we'll get to that. Now this is I like this one. Now this is from it's Reebok, so I think it's about '06. But
Yeah,
this
it looks like
design this is our longest ever running home jerseys. This was '03 to '09 we
yeah,
had this design. The only difference was I think in the '03, '04 years we had a bit of a yellow collar before they went for that
yeah.
more sort of collar. So I'm a fan of this. It's got the V and
I,
the long bolts. It just
it
needs a bit of yellow.
it
Just needs a
does
bit
give
of
me a
yellow.
little bit of nostalgia. I think of the early days of Slater, Smith, and Cronk. I think
Yep.
of Greg Inglis when he broke out, and even
Israel Folau.
Israel Folau starting out as well for his first few years. I think of Matt King on the wing there. I think of well, you can think of half of our jerseys and think of Matt Geyer, but yeah, there's some good moments in there. Two
Yeah.
grand final wins.
This one was very close for me, number one. I really liked this. It just was missing the yellow
Yeah,
for me.
that's a good jersey.
This was 13-14. It wasn't
It's
bad.
okay. It's okay.
They stretched out that V that went all the way down to the hip, but I mean, like I said, it's got the V sort of there, but it's a bit of a stretch. It was okay. I'd rate this sort of midfield. And this, I wasn't a fan of this. This was around '09,
It's like a
2010.
Broncos jersey.
Yeah, the purple was a bit weird. Even the yellow on the collar was just a bit awkward. I mean, at least they tried to put some yellow on there.
Mm,
It had some lightning bolts. This one had too much happening for me.
yeah, it's too busy.
Yep. 2015, this was interesting. Now, I reckon this could have almost worked if that bar across the chest was yellow. If you added a bit of
Yeah.
yellow in there, it could have been all right. So this was sort of a one. We only had this for 1 year. And that's the problem too. I don't like we're changing our strip every year. It's
Mm.
you
Give it a
know
5-year run at least to actually get to know what you're. And in fairness, BLK shut down as a company, so we kind of had to change after that.
that's true. Yeah.
But still,
Now, drum roll. This is my least favorite Storm jerseys this year's. Again, it's too much happening. It's the purple blends into the navy. There's no yellow. There's no V. There's no lightning bolts.
too much.
Like that could just be. You take away the Storm logo. That could be just like any sort of. You wouldn't know it's a Melbourne Storm jersey. That could be just any.
You've bought that off the rack at the
shirt.
Mitre shop somewhere. So you've gone to the
exactly.
Mitre outlet down in in Docklands and Port Melbourne, and you've bought that off the rack as a generic top that you wear for your
Exactly.
indoor soccer team. You buy 5 of them and play with your mates.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry guys, whoever designed this jersey, but yeah, this is my least favorite. Doesn't say Melbourne Storm at all, apart from the purple and the navy. All right, drum roll. Here we go. Yes, the favorite. I think
Yes.
a lot of fans love this one. It's got the V. It's got the lightning bolts. It was the first jersey with the lightning bolts that and then obviously here's Marcus by.
Yes, I was going to say, where's Marcus? Where's Glenn Lazarus? Where's Paul Marquette and Danny Williams crashing through packs? Where's Brett Kamali putting those we didn't appreciate them as much at the time as we should have, but Brett Kamali with his pinpoint kicking game.
Yeah.
Exceptional.
Yeah, I think I reckon a lot of fans will agree with me. 99. So 99 was without the sponsor. In 2000, I think Adecco sponsored them through 2001, 2002. So we had this jersey for a good 4 seasons.
Yeah, and I have one still. I've got it somewhere in vacuum storage since I've moved, but I've got to dig it out.
I lost mine. Every time I go back to my parents' house, I'm searching that place and I can never find it. But anyway, so that was my ponderings for this week. Now,
outstanding.
all right, last
Let's
running out
get
of
on to the
time.
final segment because we
The big meme
are
review.
straining our listeners' patience. Tell us all about these memes, my friend.
Yeah, we've got some memes. No, nothing too amazing this week, but few aimed at Newcastle this week. We're playing them. So Mitchell Pearce, yeah, this was
We have
down.
long
This
memories.
photo was a couple of weeks ago, but not only is that kiss a bit interesting, but I thought the meme was.
This is
I don't
one
think
where
we
we
should-
would say, if you know, you know.
Yeah,
And if you know, you giggled.
there we go. What's the difference between Harold Holt and Kalen Ponga? Harold Holt only went missing once. I thought, and I
Did
thought it
it,
was going to be something like Harold Holt only went missing in the water once or something, because obviously it was fine.
you're right. There was a potential extra layer to that. There was also the potential for the Chinese sub couldn't fit in the water on the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go down the conspiracy theory route.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. It's another one, Sonny Bill. I know we talked about this last week, but
Yeah, that pretty
Sonny
much
Bill,
sums up our thoughts from last week.
Politis, making it rain on Sonny Bill. The Broncos burger. Now, yeah, so if you score 19 points, I believe this was a real ad. Now, I was in Brisbane
That's hilarious.
2017, and I only went through McDonald's because I wanted to eat the Broncos burger. I mean, that just shows you again, like, how big the Broncos are. The fact that the McDonald's, this international corporation, names a burger after your football team in your city. Like, what other sport teams have that? Anyway, it makes it all the more funny that they're losing.
Looking forward to the Nelson burger. It'll be very,
yes.
very big.
We need the Nelson burger. That'll be huge. This one was good. This was Jai Arrow of the Gold Coast Titans on the weekend. Ran out sporting this haircut.
Absolutely hideous. He's definitely looking like
Yep.
Don Mattingly.
Yep. And yep, the Panthers were in their pink away jerseys. So again, another love the Simpsons ones. Nathan, my lucky red hat, clean
Interesting in the Cleary household last week, I reckon.
Yep. Just love Marge. Look at Marge's look. What's Marge thinking there?
She's thinking, why did I let these two work together?
Yeah. Anyway, and this is our last one. So Mark Riddell came on. Can't remember which game I was watching, but he was doing the sports bet, the Try July, and I thought this was good. Mark Riddell, he's not looking.
High July.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Look, no, I won't say it. No, I won't go low on that one. I'll just say that one day people might be watching us and going, "Geez, that beardo with the pulled back hair looks ugly."
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty ugly, so I don't care.
Or maybe we're starting from a low base. I'll just hide behind Glenn
on.
Lazarus. I'll always look interesting next to the brick with eyes.
Brick with eyes. What a nickname.
Beautiful.
Anyway, guys, I think that's it for another week.
We are done. So, listeners, thank you very much. Keep tuning in. Tell your friends about us. Tell your Melbourne Storm mates, and tell your mates from across the border as well. If you've made time to have friends up there, that somebody other than the Daily Telegraph and the Sydney Morning Herald is going to talk about the Melbourne Storm, and we're probably going to talk about them with a bit of a one-eyed approach. So, get on the graveyard shift. We'll be back again next week. Poleman, it's been great chatting to you again. Hopefully, plenty of Nelson tries to talk about after the night's game.
Yep, and just reiterate, don't forget, subscribe if you like us. Share around with your friends. Leave any comments, questions.
And feedback.
So we'd love it. We'll try to answer any questions you have. And thanks to those who have been watching the first couple of weeks. So
beautiful. Thanks, guys, and take care.
Thanks. Bye.